It's a nightmare come true for his many victims and their families. Hosni Mubarak free from the gallows. That's come after a court found the former dictator not guilty of ordering troops to open fire on protesters. It overturned an earlier conviction of life imprisonment. Hundreds of demonstrators were killed as security forces cracked down on that uprising. But the court agreed with Mubarak.
Mohammed Hosni Mubarak, who is before you today, did not order at all the killing of protesters. Again, did not order at all the killing of protesters or the shedding of the blood of Egyptians.
Many Egyptians expressed shock at the ruling.
I don't understand the terms of the ruling or why he was acquitted, and I'm not going to doubt anyone, but the world is not going the right way. The people who are now jailed were the ones who revolted, and those who the people revolted against have now been released. The whole world is upside down.
Meanwhile, the country's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi, remains in prison. That's after he was convicted in what rights groups said was a sham trial. Morsi was arrested after a coup led by the country's current leader and Mubarak's former protege, Abdul Fattah al-Sisi. He's continued to crack down on dissent since he took power in 2014. But some Egyptians have become indifferent.
We have turned the page. We actually no longer care about the result.
They say that the promise of the Arab Spring is now a distant memory, and Sisi offers stability to revive a stagnant economy and face the ever-growing threat of Daesh. Shoaib Hassan, the Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, let's bring back in Omar Ashur from Exeter University's Institute of Arabic and Islamic Studies. And also joining us now from London is Mustafa Ragab. He's the founder of the UK's Egyptian Association. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Mustafa Ragab, so from the court ruling, can we determine that Hosni Mubarak, yes, he was a dictator, yes, he was corrupt, but he did not order the killing of protesters? Is that the way we can look at it?
Well, we don't say he ordered the killing or not, but obviously there is a lot of people that are being killed, and someone has got to be responsible. Someone must make the orders for the forces to fire. So this person has to be caught and has to be brought back to justice. Whether it is Mubarak or the interior minister, someone got to be responsible for the killing that happened in Egypt.
So, okay, let me ask it to you in another way. The release of Mubarak, was it a legal or a political decision?
Well, obviously, the court ruling will come for no evidence. If you don't have concrete evidence to sentence someone, then you simply cannot sentence him. And if you go to the biggest example when it happened in America, when Simpson killed his wife, and it's all clear that he killed his wife, but at the end of the day, the glove wasn't fitting his hand and he was acquitted.
Okay, so in this case, was it all clear that Mubarak ordered it, but the glove didn't fit the hand?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's really fascinating. Okay, Omar Ashur.
Someone must have ordered.
Okay, so Omar Ashur, was this a legal or political decision?
Absolutely political. There is no, basically, to put it very simply, there is a structural problem. You know, the revolution forces, or the pro-change forces, to put it more generally, lost the battle. And most of the pro-change activists, who no glove really would fit them because there was no crimes committed, are now either in jail, some of them killed, and some of them in the outside the country and cannot come back. And all of the famous names that were related to January uprising, January 2015's uprising, most of them are prosecuted. So you know the judicial system, there is a serious crisis in it in that sense. On the other hand, this is a new regime. This is not the Mubarak regime, and there is serious rivalry between the current rulers of Egypt and the Mubarak regime. But at the same time, they would see him as someone who was ex-military, someone that belonged to them at one point or another, and therefore he spent enough time in jail, so it's time for his release. So I'm not buying that this is about legal debates or a clever lawyer that got him out in many ways. If the status quo has changed, I think Mubarak would probably be upheld not just for the 800 innocent protesters that were killed in the January 2011, but to many other cases that we don't even look at the moment, ranging from basically the late 80s all the way to 2011 when he stopped.
So Mustafa Ragab, this man was a powerful symbol. He was the symbol that they rose up against. So for those millions who took to the streets and for the mothers of those kids who either died rising up against Mubarak or who are languishing in prison right now, for this man to be released, does that mean revolution for nothing, revolution was dead, you fought and rose up and died for nothing, it's back to square one? That's the symbolism and the optics of this, right?
No. We're not back to square one.
Tell me why not.
Egypt have progressed and will carry on progressing. And of course, in any revolution, that would happen. It happened everywhere. And you will never, ever get to the person who will be responsible for that killing. You may be, but when we go back, is it political or is it justice? I believe that whatever happened, the court, if they don't have the evidence, they cannot sentence anybody. And when we see what happened during the revolution, people were on the top of houses, people were everywhere, snipers were everywhere. It was a chaotic, it was just a messy thing, so you can never get to the bottom of it. But at the end of the day, someone got to be responsible, and the people, of course, will be frustrated, the people will be upset or disappointed, not just the family of the people who have been killed, the Egyptian people in general will be very disappointed and upset. But if you don't have the evidence, you can't do it. It's not, politics will play a part, but I don't think it will be fully political reason. The judge and the court have to have concrete evidence to sentence someone.
Omar Ashur, would Zain al-Abidin bin Ali be thinking, man, I should have just held on for a bit longer and I could be like Mubarak, I shouldn't have left the country?
Well, he tried all his best to hold on. There was a mutiny in the army. General Rashid bin Ammar decided not to fire. The Ministry of Interior, we know now that some of institutions, the Tunisians, the Ministry of Interior, some of its institutions also refused to fire. So he tried his best and he couldn't do it. So that's why he had no option except to flee to Saudi Arabia. Mubarak was the same thing, by the way. Mubarak had two sticks, the Ministry of Interior and the army. The Ministry of Interior, in the end, by the 28th, most of its leaders really fled. And the soldiers on the ground were thinking, why am I defending leaders who already fled? So basically one arm was broken. The other arm refused to hit except lightly, did not really collaborate that much. If someone else could do the dirty jobs like the thugs of the 2nd of February 2011, then be it. If they couldn't do it, then we were not going to do it for them. And then they took over the country. In the end, it was a military coup against Mubarak in many ways in 11th of February, and a military coup against a dictatorship, which we know from statistical evidence that it usually leads to a period of transition. And then you negotiate with the military how much rights and privileges they will get in exchange for freedom and justice and some of the objectives of the transition. Of course, in the end, it failed, mainly in 2013, and you have a re-rise of a very different regime where the heads of the military are the most powerful player, economic and political players, not as the usual Mubarak system, which was a presidential establishment with the security services, with the National Democratic Party, which is a political mobilization machine. So it's a very different regime in its features and orientations. But it's still, extremely repressive, extremely brutal, and the level of impunity is that someone like Mubarak, with all the evidence and actually gathered in March 2011 by a fact-finding committee that was established by the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces back then, which basically indicted him in an official fact-finding. Very detailed, and now that report, even the comprehensive report, is not there. What we have only is like about 60 pages of it, but still a good indictment of Mubarak. So on the legal dimension, it was very easy to, in any free and fair court of law, he would have been convicted.
Okay.
But again, the issue is
Omar, I got to jump in there. We are running out of time, Omar.
I just
very briefly, please, sir.
I just like to Yeah, I'd just like to say Mubarak didn't need to leave the country, because during the time, it took a long time for the revolution to do what they done, and Mubarak have managed to destroy all the evidence during that time, and he did not need to leave the country. He was safe then.
Okay, Mustafa Ragab and Omar Ashur, good to talk to both of you. Thank you very much for joining us.